Okay, as I alluded to, I'm just going to very quickly share something that we've been doing in Swansea, which really leads in very nicely from what Tom has just been speaking about in terms of pre-lab preparation. And these are a series of videos that we made with one of our technicians about how to use equipment within a lab to try and prepare students before they get to the lab. So hopefully this video will play okay.
Okay, so when you mix flower pots and your liquids into a vial, you'll be using a number of different types of petters to do this. If you read the top of it, it will tell you what scale and range your pipette can go to. So I want to be pipetting 1 ml. So I'll take the pipette with the blue tip that has 100 to 1,000 microliters, remembering that 1,000 microliters is 1 milliliter. I'll then make sure that this is set to 100. If it needs to be adjusted, this one can just be freely rotated. You should never go above 100 though. With these type of pipetters, there's a locking system in place. So you pull the lock down and adjust it accordingly then, and put the lock back up to hold it. You'll have various different pipette tips to go on your pipetter. For the 1 ml pipetter, you'll be using the blue tips. Push down firmly with the pipetter onto one of the tips, making sure the tip stays on. Your pipetter always needs to stay in this direction, never to leave the pipetter upside down, because the liquid will go into your pipetter and damage it. Take the reagent that you wish to pipette, making sure you've swilled it thoroughly first. With some samples you'll be using will be in smaller tubes like Eppendorf's, and you'll use the vortexer to do this, where you simply take your sample, press down on the vortexer, and it pipes the sample thoroughly. So you take the vial, pipetter in a grip like this, with your thumb over the button. There are 2 stops on your pipetter. If you press down lightly, you'll feel the first resistance. That'll be your first stop. There's then a second stop, which will be used to just expel the last bit of air out of your pipetter. So when pipetting, go down to your first stop, place your tipped pipetter into the sample, making sure the tip is submerged. Slowly release the plunger. If you do this too quickly, the liquid will shoot up into your pipetter. You then just take the pipetter over the vial you wish to dispense into and press down on the plunger all the way down this time to the second stop. Remove your pipetter from the vial, go over your yellow bin and press the ejector button with your thumb to remove the tip.
Okay, so that was just a very short video that we put together, and you can obviously see what else I watch on YouTube now, which is mainly about Lego and Star Wars. I make no apology for that whatsoever. That was actually just filmed with one of our technical staff, and we initially thought we were just going to put that video online and students would watch that before they came to the class. They'd have a good idea of how to use Pipette. What we then decided to do was to then embed a quiz into our virtual learning environment, which is Canvas. And initially I set this up literally as a video with some MCQs, and we've now converted these into SCORM packages, which, as you can see, if you want to use these, you're more than welcome to download any of these resources. I will just preempt it is still in development, so some of the things don't work perfectly yet, but we're working on it. But what we can do is then we can get the students to go in and do a short quiz, which hopefully will work. So they have a short video. Which highlights one of the errors that the technician has made and discussed in that video. Then they have to go on a very light touch just to go and select what they think that error was, and then they'll get instant feedback about that. So that's really the way that we've used videos to sort of engage the students pre-lab. We got ones on how to use different types of pipettes, micropipetting, and a graduated pipette. We've got ones about using spectrophotometry, or what you do when you enter the lab. This one, instead of it being an MCQ, all we've done for this one is to create a hotspot, which it won't let me do because I've already tested it. But it's literally a picture of the demonstrator having made an error, like not putting gloves on or having safety specs above their eyes. And it's basically a hotspot that you go in and just click on. So All of these resources are freely available on a public-facing Canvas site. As I said, there's ways for you to embed those in your own VLEs if you would like. And there's a couple of other, if you're in immunology, then there's a couple of other resources here. Ian, you're going to love this one because it's a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire quiz game show. So I'm going to stop my sharing on that. If there's any questions, and David, I hope you may have kept an eye on the chat, and you can.
Yeah, there's a question then about, do you think it's good that the students are seeing their own environment and the staff members that they know doing the techniques?
I think so. I think it makes it more personable for them. So obviously it's one of the technical staff that was being videoed there, not a student. But I think it's the fact that they see somebody that then they're then going to see in the lab actually doing it and carrying out the procedure is probably very, very good and useful for them.
Yeah, I suppose that also goes then for the next question from George was about this. It's exactly the same equipment they will be using. So when they come and use it, there is some pipettes look different to others in videos. But
yeah, definitely. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to do this, is that we use Learning Science as a sort of a simulation package in line with these as well. So it's all combined together, but that it doesn't look exactly the same. So they don't have exactly the same spectrophotometer or exactly the same pipette. With this, what they see in the video is what they're going to be using when they actually come into the lab. And anecdotally, I think that we've had a lot less questions on the how do I do this type approach? You know, is this 100 microliters? How do I set this to 100 microliters? And more the questions now are about how do I do this to make my experiment better, or what does this mean? So anecdotally, from just talking to the technicians and to the demonstrators, it's had a really big impact in terms of the pre-lab preparation.
Yeah. And so Mel asks, do you think the videos and these quizzes could replace pre-labs and form part of their assessment?
They could. I'm not sure that I would want to, because I think having them as a very light touch, you just need to complete this in order to be able to access the assessment for this piece of coursework, is possibly the better way to go for this. From my point of view, I think if you try to make it a summative assessment, it puts a little bit too much pressure on the students, where really what I want them to be getting from this is how you use the equipment properly. I think there's definitely scope to have sort of pre-lab as an assessment if you want to do that, to force students to engage with the pre-lab stuff. Just not the approach I want to take with this at the moment. But
excellent. I think we're there at the end of the questions. Thank you, Nigel.
No problem. I'll just pop the, hopefully, link to that Canvas site into the chat, so anybody who is interested can go and use that. I think that brings us to the end of the presentations. And just from my perspective, I was at the BSI Virtual Congress over the last couple of days, and Sir Patrick Vallance, who's the Chief Scientific Advisor to the government, was talking this morning. And one of the things he said was that he hopes that the collaborative nature that science has now undergone in order to try and solve the COVID problem is something that is retained post-COVID, now that we have news of the vaccine. I think I'd just like to echo that in terms of the teaching side of things. The willingness for people to share ideas and resources has been so refreshing over the last sort of 6-8 months. And I really hope that continues, because I've learned so much from talking to people, being able to network with people in environments like this. And I think that's something that we really need to try and make sure that we keep hold of moving forward. With that in mind, I think we will all try to keep dry labs going in some format, so that sharing can keep going, because I think we've still got so much more to learn. With that in mind, for me, it's really thank you very much for everything that you've done and everybody that's contributed to this network this year. Have a very good Christmas and enjoy a very well-earned break, because I think we all deserve it. So thank you very much.
Echo Nigel's words. Thank you very much, everybody.